A broken taillight, a calm driver, and suddenly, a fight for his life. This isn't fiction. This is Tyre Nichols. We'll show you what went wrong, the human cost, and the lessons we must learn to prevent it again. This is Fallen Voices. This is the story no one should forget. Chapter 1. Quick recap. January 7th, 2023. Memphis, Tennessee. Tyre Nichols, 29 years old, was driving home after a long shift. No weapons, no threat, just a regular night. Police lights appeared behind him. He pulled over, calm at first, confused next, then terrified. Within seconds, body cams captured chaos, shouting, annoyed, conflicting orders, strained, hands pulling him from the car. Tyre tried to speak, but fear took over. He broke free and ran a few hundred feet. Officers from the Scorpion unit caught up and began striking him repeatedly. Even when he cried out for his mother, the beating continued. Paramedics arrived too late. He died 3 days later. The official report called it reckless driving and resisting arrest. The footage told the truth, a complete collapse of discipline, training, and humanity. It's easy to see this as 5 bad cops, 1 tragic story. But the real question isn't what happened. We all saw that. The question is why it keeps happening. In the next chapters, we'll break this down. Where did the system fail? What mistakes turned a traffic stop into a death sentence? And most importantly, how can we prevent the next Tyre Nichols? Chapter 2. The mistake. Every tragedy has a beginning, and for Tyre Nichols, it didn't start with his death. It started with preventable mistakes. The first mistake, communication. Officers shouted conflicting commands. Stop! Get on the ground! No, stay in the car. Tyre didn't know what to do. In those seconds, fear overtook reason. Training should prevent confusion. The Scorpion unit had a culture of aggression, not clarity. Officers were taught to subdue quickly, often without assessing actual threat. Protocols meant to guide them weren't followed. The second mistake, escalation before de-escalation. Tyre was unarmed, nonviolent, and cooperative. Yet officers escalated immediately. Fists, pepper spray, baton strikes, before backup or nonviolent alternatives were considered. Experts later called this a textbook failure in de-escalation training. A proper assessment could have prevented the beating. The third mistake, lack of accountability. Inside the unit, officers reportedly praised each other for using excessive force. One even joked after the incident, showing a culture of impunity. The system silently encouraged behavior that ultimately killed Tyre. The fourth mistake, delayed medical help. Paramedics arrived minutes later, but officers didn't provide immediate aid. Tyre's pleas went unanswered. Even a small delay can make the difference between life and death. These mistakes were not random. They were systemic, layered, and preventable. Confusing communication led to poor compliance. Aggressive tactics caused unnecessary injury. A culture of impunity allowed brutality to continue. Delayed medical intervention made survival impossible. Look at it this way. Once you see it clearly, it's not hard to recognize these mistakes. And that's why this episode exists, so we can learn before another life is lost. Next, we'll explore the human side of this tragedy. The family, the community, the voices silenced by headlines. Because understanding mistakes isn't enough. We must see the cost. Chapter 3. The human side. Tyre Nichols was more than a headline. He was a son, a brother, a friend, a colleague. His family described him as kind, hard-working, and full of life. He had dreams, routines, and small joys, a laugh that could light up a room, a passion for music, and an unwavering love for his mother. When news of his death broke, the community was in shock. Candlelight vigils appeared across Memphis. People gathered to mourn, demand answers, and honor his life. Friends recalled the last time they saw him. Simple moments, helping a neighbor, joking with coworkers, now forever tinged with grief. Every memory became evidence of the injustice. Even strangers felt the loss. Videos circulated online showing people holding signs, "Justice for Tyre" and "No more silence." The story resonated because it reflected a pattern of preventable tragedy, lives cut short due to systemic failures. For his mother, the pain was unimaginable. Every replay of the video, every news report reminded her of what she lost. A son taken too soon, not by chance, but by mistakes that could have been prevented. The human side isn't just emotion. It's a lens to understand consequences. Policies, training, and decisions made by individuals ripple outward. One failure affects families, neighborhoods, and the national conscience. As we move forward, keep in mind these mistakes have faces, names, and hearts behind them. Tyre Nichols is not just a case study. He is a human being whose life demanded accountability, reflection, and change. Next, we'll explore the systemic failures that allowed these mistakes to happen. The policies, culture, and structures that turned a traffic stop into a tragedy. Chapter 4. Systemic Failures. Tyre Nichols' death was not just a momentary lapse by a few officers. It was the result of systemic failures that have existed for decades. First, training failures. Officers are taught to de-escalate conflicts, assess threat levels, and protect life. Yet the Scorpion unit consistently prioritized aggression over restraint. Protocols existed, but they were ignored or misapplied. Second, a culture of impunity. Within certain units, misconduct was tolerated, even celebrated. Reports of excessive force were rarely punished. Officers learned that their actions had few consequences, which emboldened risky, violent behavior. Third, accountability mechanisms failed. Internal affairs, supervision, and oversight did not intervene until public outrage forced action. By then, the damage was done. Lives lost, families shattered, communities shaken. Fourth, procedural missteps. Standard operating procedures for traffic stops, use of force, and immediate medical assistance were either ignored or inconsistently applied. Each misstep compounded the previous, creating a cascade of preventable harm. These failures were interconnected. Communication breakdowns, aggressive tactics, impunity, and poor oversight combined to form a system that allowed tragedy to unfold. It wasn't one mistake. It was many, layered together. Looking at the broader picture, Tyre's death reflects a nationwide issue. Across the country, incidents show patterns of mismanagement, lack of transparency, and insufficient accountability. Understanding these systemic problems is key to preventing future tragedies. The lesson is clear. Fixing one officer's behavior is not enough. The system itself must change. Policies, culture, and training must be aligned to prioritize human life over procedure, aggression, or ego. Next, we will examine the legal consequences and reforms that followed Tyre Nichols' death. Chapter 5. Legal Consequences and Reforms. After Tyre Nichols' death, the legal system moved swiftly, a rare response in cases of police misconduct. 5 officers were fired the day the footage was released. Criminal investigations began almost immediately. The public demanded justice, and courts responded. Each officer faced charges of second-degree murder, aggravated assault, and official misconduct. The legal process revealed the depth of planning failures, poor oversight, and cultural problems within the Scorpion unit. Beyond individual accountability, the case sparked conversations about police reform nationwide. City councils, police departments, and state legislatures reviewed policies on traffic stops, use of force, and unit deployment. Training programs emphasizing de-escalation, empathy, and communication received renewed attention. Public hearings exposed gaps in reporting and internal accountability. Communities demanded transparency. Body cam footage, disciplinary records, and internal investigations were no longer optional but essential. Civil rights groups amplified these calls, connecting Tyre Nichols' case to a broader movement advocating for structural change. Their message was clear. Preventable deaths are a systemic problem, not isolated incidents. The reforms initiated after this tragedy were aimed at stopping future mistakes. Stricter supervision, better training, and a shift in culture from aggression to protection. While legislation alone cannot guarantee safety, these steps were designed to create accountability, reduce risk, and restore trust between police and the community. Tyre Nichols' death was tragic, but the legal response and reforms signaled hope, a recognition that change is possible when mistakes are acknowledged and systems are corrected. Next, in the final chapter, we will discuss lessons learned and steps we can take to prevent another tragedy like this in the future. Chapter 6: Lessons Learned and Preventive Steps. Tyre Nichols' death forced a nation to confront uncomfortable truths. Mistakes were clear: miscommunication, escalation, impunity, delayed medical help, and systemic failures. But understanding the errors is only the beginning. The critical question is, how do we prevent this from happening again? First, training must prioritize de-escalation and human life over aggressive tactics. Officers should be equipped to handle fear, confusion, and nonviolent resistance without resorting to force. Second, accountability must be immediate and consistent. No culture of impunity should allow misconduct to persist. Internal reviews, transparent reporting, and public oversight are essential. Third, clear communication protocols are vital. Conflicting commands endanger both officers and civilians. Every officer must know how to give instructions that can be understood, even under stress. Fourth, medical response must be prompt. Immediate aid saves lives. Training should include rapid assessment and intervention for anyone injured during encounters. Finally, communities must stay informed and engaged. Public awareness, advocacy, and pressure can help ensure that tragedies do not fade into statistics. Change requires cooperation between law enforcement and the people they serve. Tyre Nichols' life and death teach us that systemic mistakes have human costs. Every protocol ignored, every culture tolerated, and every delayed response can turn a routine encounter into tragedy. By analyzing these failures, acknowledging them, and implementing corrective steps, we can honor Tyre Nichols and prevent future loss. This is the purpose of Fallen Voices, not just to remember, but to learn, reflect, and act, so that no one else is taken by mistakes that could have been prevented. Tyre Nichols' story is a tragedy we cannot forget. It shows the cost of mistakes, the weight of systemic failure, and the lives affected when policies, training, and accountability break down. But remembering is not enough. Change happens when we learn, act, and demand better. Advocate for reform, stay informed, and ensure your voice is heard. If you believe stories like this should lead to real change, subscribe to Fallen Voices and join us in uncovering the truth, learning the lessons, and preventing the next tragedy before it happens. Every story matters, every voice counts, and together, we can honor the lives lost by making sure mistakes like these are never repeated.